We've got a special episode of Front End Fire for you this week. Let's get into it. Hey there, everybody. I'm your host du jour, Jack Harrington, and with me are always my good friends, Paige Niederinghouse.
Hey, everybody.
And TJ Van Tol.
Hey.
And this week, we're going to talk about something I think that affects all of us, which is getting overwhelmed by the amount of code reviews from all of this stuff that AI generates.
Yeah, from the AI slop fest.
Oh my God. How do we not drown in this? And so, we thought, well, everybody's experiencing this, so let's just kind of talk about what we do and then get the conversation started. And of course, you can jump on our Discord server and add, your tips and techniques. And if they're really good, we'll talk about them in upcoming episodes because I'm sure we will use them and let you guys know how that goes. So, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have the answers.
No,
we just started talking amongst ourselves a couple weeks ago before we recorded, and I was just asking, how are you guys managing it? Because it seems like there's constantly code to review. I'm looking at diffs. I'm trying to understand it, but there's too much cognitively to take in. So how's everybody managing?
And it changed the role entirely.
Yes.
Right? This used to be something that, you'd have lots of time building stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then okay, I'm going to take a little bit of a cognitive break here and do something else. And then maybe that was some PR reviews and kind of like take, like a palate cleanser, right? And now it's just like the role is PR reviews. And I was always terrible with them. I still am. So yeah, this is not great for me.
All right. So I thought maybe to kind of focus this conversation a little bit, I thought I'd start with some data just on the amount of code being generated. So I'll start with, and I'll put these in the show notes as well. Anthropic did this really thorough write-up on the amount of code that they are outputting themselves for their own internal processes because they've done a lot of measurement on this sort of stuff. And the headlining claim from this blog post, which was written just a few months ago, is today, Anthropic engineers on average ship 8x as much code per quarter as they did from 2021 to 2025. So Anthropic is a little bit of an outlier here, just in terms of the nature of what they do. But I found some others from Dropbox, from Microsoft. Spotify has a really good write-up on their blog, on their engineering blog, where they say over the last year, there's been a 76% increase in pull request frequency on Spotify's end. That also feels roughly about what I've seen at my work. It feels like pull requests, I have not seen 8x as much stuff, but I've definitely seen what feels like double the amount of pull requests and the amount of time I'm spending on them. And also in terms of the complexity of the pull requests as well. So it's not just getting PRs, but with AI, you can potentially get these PRs that are massive.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes.
That would have, the ultimate example is the bun moving from Zig to Rust. But I'll get these at Blues all the time, where it used to be if you thought, oh, this tool or this little framework that we're using isn't working, well, that would just go on the backlog. But now you just throw it at an agent and see what happens. And if it seems to work, you can throw it in a PR and send it off to your coworker. And so I think that's the problem. And I guess now I'll throw it back to one of you two to maybe kick us off of like how you're personally handling this. Are you okay? This is a safe space, but
well, yeah, it is kind of a mental health thing too in all of this. But I would say, this is not an ad. CodeRabbit is saving my butt on this one. It's an automated code review tool. A lot of projects use it. They sponsor TanStack. Netlify uses it. It's become my initial PR review go-to, and it's genuinely really good.
So is it better than like GitHub Copilot, which I think a lot of us have access to if we're using GitHub? Like for a company, you can assign it as a reviewer of PRs. I remember using it when it first came out, and it was middling to okay at best at pointing out code, and I have since not used it probably for the last 4 or 5 months, so maybe it's gotten better. But is CodeRabbit, in your opinion, more thorough at actually pointing out things that are issues?
I can't say because at least the projects I've been on, it was CodeRabbit or not. We didn't use the Copilot review stuff on its own. Yeah.
And what sort of things is, for people that haven't used it before, what is CodeRabbit looking for? What sort of things does it typically point out or
It finds all
flag?
kinds of stuff. It finds consistency issues. It finds a lot of security stuff, which I find, really,
That's helpful.
really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other really cool thing about it is it also gives you like clear mitigation steps and also like a copy pasta for your agent. Like, oh, okay, if this one's interesting to you, then copy pasta this into your agent, and then it'll evaluate what I said, and then go and do a mitigation on it. And generally, my flow, honestly, is when I get any CodeRabbit stuff at all in my inbox, like on a PR that I just did, I just tell my agent, hey, go look at those comments, see what sticks, what doesn't, give me the rundown, and then let's just kind of go through them and just start asking questions about them, and then, fix, and
So
there you go.
CodeRabbit it does inline comments in a PR just like a typical user would, and then you can use the GitHub API or whatever to pull in all of those comments from your agent and then have it go through them and fix them or respond.
And again, not an ad. Not really. I know this sounds like an ad at this point, but like you can also do it locally. So, but pre-PR, you can actually have it run. And I think that's another thing. And then you kind of get into a cool like loop there where it's like you say, hey, do this feature, but then CodeRabbit review it and fix whatever CodeRabbit says, and it sort of self-reinforces. But aren't there like skills as well? I mean, you talked about superpowers a while back.
There are, and yeah, I feel like I've been beating this horse to death, but superpowers is a set of skills that was written by somebody. I don't even remember
I think
who
it's
it was.
Anthropic, isn't it?
No, it's not Anthropic.
Okay.
It's some guy who works for a different company, but Anthropic liked it so much that they made it like an official plugin for Claude Code. And I've been using it now for maybe 3 months or so, and it is so much better in terms of the quality of code that comes out and the lack of remediation that I have to do afterwards to get it to a working state that I feel good about, which is basically ship it to production for a company-based application, not just like my own stuff. That I can't imagine really doing development without it these days. And it's 15 or 20 skills, I think, in total, and they keep updating them over time. So if you're using the plugin and you just keep updating Claude Code, it will pull in new changes to the skills. So they do keep evolving it. But one of the skills that they have, or two of them actually, is review my own PR, which you would call, or which it would invoke when you feel like your code is ready to review. You're going to push it to GitHub, and it will go through it and just like point out things that are security breaches, code that's duplicated, things that don't follow your styling conventions, logic that doesn't make sense, all kinds of stuff like that. And then there's another one that is review my coworker's PR. So if you're pulling or looking at somebody else's PR, it will go through kind of the same flow, but with a slightly different, I guess, lens on to understand what it is that this is trying to do, and then give you feedback on things that you could respond back with in the PR for stuff that doesn't make sense or stuff that needs to be fixed or made better in some way.
I like that both of you are getting on the pre-review, aka there's still a lot of responsibility on the person that is creating the PR. You have to realize that if you just send AI slop to someone, you're being very inconsiderate towards that person because you're just dropping a bomb and making it their responsibility for testing and making sure this thing works. There's still an onus on you as the creator to make sure your PR is good, it is focused. I always still write my PRs by hand. Sometimes I'll put in a little bit of an AI description under and I'll clearly designate that. But I still think one human thing that's good to do is I'm the person who's kind of distilling what I did as a human and it's giving a short description. It also helps me understand what I did and making sure I'm not just completely reliant on what the agent outputted. I should still be able to, as a human, write a 2-sentence description of what this is doing and why I'm doing it. And I think that helps then as someone who's getting this, because we've talked about this on the show previously. Jack and I have complained about this. When you get a PR that has clearly just gotten a Claude slop written description, it makes it so hard as the reviewer to go from there and just to parse that and get up to speed with what is this actually doing? Because the reviewer's job is very important. You really are the gatekeeper between this code and production. And I don't know, you just want to have some sympathy for the person. That's something that hasn't changed in the AI era. All this stuff about making sure you create good PRs, that was stuff that was true before AI. And it's just, I'd say, even more important in an AI world just because of the velocity of code being pushed out.
Yeah, good PR hygiene, making small PRs. If you're not in that discipline already, like do that. Make lots of small PRs as opposed to making lots of, one or two big PRs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't have your AI. It's easy. It's easier than ever to have your AI just throw 3 separate things in one PR and just be like, oh yeah, whatever. Just throw them all out together. You should fight that. You should fight that tendency, and you can use AI to help you. That's the one good thing about the tools. You can say, oh, there's 3 unrelated changes in here. Can you break those up to 3 separate branches? The LLM's capable of that. It can help you do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's the thing is even though we're using agents to write our code, we as the developers are still responsible for it at the end of the day. When it breaks in production, that is your responsibility to go and fix. Whether you do it with an AI agent, that's fine. But you should still be on the hook for putting good code out into the world that works. And that's the other thing. Another thing that I still do, even though we are in this brave new world of PRs written by agents, is smoke testing. And I smoke test my own stuff locally. Everything that is UI or API based, I will test it, and I will find the weird bugs that the AI couldn't. Like right now, I've got a feature where there are certain times when a radio button can be disabled. And when that radio button is disabled, there's supposed to be a little hint that pops up that tells you why it's disabled, like it's been protected or the branch is off or whatever. And the AI wrote the code. I was smoke testing it, and I kept saying, I'm not seeing this hint when the radio button is disabled. And finally, I had to open the browser tools because it had tried 2 or 3 times to look through the logic and fix the CSS and do this thing. And finally, I opened the browser tools. There's 2 CSS display of none that are hiding that hint from being shown. And I took a screenshot of that and it's here's why it won't show. Go fix this. Find this CSS. It's oh yeah, that's from that other tool that we're using for some of our CSS.
Oh, crazy. What do you know?
Yeah, but you still cannot trust them, especially when it comes to stuff that has to do with the browser and the display. They just cannot. They can trace the logic. They can find those bugs. But when it comes to visible elements and stuff like that, you cannot rely on them. And that is why smoke testing is important. And I do it on my own PRs and I do it on my coworkers' PRs because I will find stuff that they didn't catch. And it makes me wonder, are they actually testing this themselves? Or are they just relying on the AI and throwing it into GitHub?
This was even more true. This was another thing that's AI's made worse, but was even true beforehand. And I would say this is the other thing, that your PRs should include the steps for somebody else to do that smoke test. So somebody else shouldn't have to look through the diff and figure out what's going on and then figure out how to test it. That's one important part of writing a PR, is so someone can succinctly know what is not only what has changed, but how they can recreate the scenario. Because sometimes to do that smoke test, there's a certain condition in the code base that you need to be logged in and go to this page and have 3 widgets in your cart. Whatever, in order to test this. But those should be clearly spelled out, because that'll help humans. That'll help automated agents as well that are, if you're using the code rabbits, the whatevers of the world, if they're actually going to test this out, they can use that as well.
Yeah. We actually just changed our own PR template so that is one of the sections. It's what is the summary of what you changed? What are the key things that you actually changed file-wise? How do you test this? Because I'm going to ask you pretty much every time, how do I test this? So let's just make it part of the standard for anybody who wants to know.
And again, it cycles back to that small PR hygiene, right? I think that's fundamental to all this, which is, if it's a small PR and it's about a text change or whatever, it's about, some small, like, where we put the buttons or something, it's pretty clear how that goes. Actually, I don't know if my agents or the agents will automatically do this, but at least back in the day, if it was a fully just like a UI type change or like changing the format of something or something like that, screenshots and video were required, or hey, just show us what this does, and show us on different form factors if it needs to be responsive.
Yeah, if you've got a tool like Loom or a little video recorder, I mean, sometimes it's a lot quicker to just record for a minute. Because presumably when you were coding this or your agent was coding this and you're testing with it, you had to create these scenarios. So maybe fire up your video recorder and just talk for a minute and show off how it's done, because that's in a lot of circumstances that's going to be faster than writing all that up manually.
Do you guys still? I'm kind of curious. Do you guys still do like morning stand-ups, that kind of thing?
We do. We have. So my team is spread out across 3 time zones, I think. So we actually have our stand-ups at noon to accommodate people on the West Coast and people on the East Coast. But yeah, we do. We have a 20-minute stand-up every morning or every day. And yeah, people just kind of go through what did they do yesterday? What are they working on today? Are there any blockers? But even then, like, I was reading something recently that feels true, and it was by Amelia Wattenberger, who is, I think she works for GitHub on like their R&D team, but she's pretty well known for like doing a D3 course in the past and just being like a data person. But she wrote a really great article recently about how everything has changed for us as developers. Like, it used to be, we think about the problem, we look at it, we kind of whiteboard it out, we go read some docs, we write some code, we get feedback from someone else. We kind of find things along the way. And now it's completely different because agents are doing all of that for us. So the thing that made me think of that, or kind of made me tangent off, was even though we're doing stand-ups, it feels like I'm a lot less connected to my team than I used to be. Like, I know that they're working on stuff. I know that maybe they're doing this feature or that feature, or they're in these meetings. But even when I was working with TJ at a fully remote company, I felt like I had a lot more interaction with him on a daily basis, or even multiple times, than I do now. It's like, talk to my team once, maybe we have a meeting
later. And then talk to your agent all day.
And talk to them all day. Yeah.
Yep.
That's the thing is, we used to, I mean, I feel this hardcore at Blues because I work with across software and hardware, and I'm not a hardware person, so I have hardware questions all the time. And I used to ask those to humans, but nowadays I'm asking agents because they have all the answers. And even in the code base, I used to have to reach out like, oh, such and such knows that repo really good. Let me ping them and we'll just do a quick huddle or whatever. And now I just ask Claude, and Claude magically tells me the exact thing I need to know. And it's more isolating though, because it means I'm not working with my team as much. And I haven't really processed how I feel about that, but I have for sure noticed that.
Yeah, I was in a meeting a couple of days ago, and we talked, somebody mentioned just kind of off, maybe even offhandedly, like, it's lonely, like you're spending just most of your time now with agents. And, part of it, I think, is we kind of naturally are introverted anyway, a little bit, that's just engineers. And then the other part of it is, you never want to look like a fool, or you don't want to put anybody out, but like, it's just so much easier to ask like an agent, like, how does this work? As opposed to kind of like talking to another human and being like, how does this work? And then at least you get a larger context, you get like history, you get a human interaction. You get actually talking to somebody and not, just like, talking to an agent all day. Not fun.
Yeah, but it's the same thing, Jack. Like, I know that they're busy. I feel overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that I'm working on, so I certainly don't want to bother somebody else and,
Uh,
take them off track to ask questions that if I ask the agent correctly and I have access to the right repos and the right docs, like, that it can give me a satisfactory enough answer to keep going. That's the other thing.
And companies are leaning like, or the whole culture around this is leaning into it. It's always the mantra is like, you need to be, now that we have agents, you need to be 10 times more effective than you used to be. You need to put out 8 times as much work according to Anthropic, blah, 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 right? Whatever. And that means that, yeah, if you're that busy and you're spending all your time talking to agents, ain't no time to talk to regular folk, that's
So,
what the heck.
do you think for you guys, is that of like a company mandated stance, or is it more of like an intrinsic, I feel like I am doing more with these agents, therefore I must do more? Because the company that
Intrinsic.
I work for, yeah, it's
Yeah.
intrinsic for me too. Like, we don't have any
Also
hard and fast
intrinsic.
rules
Yeah.
on
Nobody's
how
come
you
to
must
me
use
and said,
them.
hey, you're not 10x. Like that's
Right.
no.
I just feel like I must be doing that, or I must be getting to this point, or I must be producing this by the end of today, even though no one else is expecting that as far as I know. But
Well,
yeah,
this is backed up. There is we covered it on this podcast, a big Harvard Business Review study on the era of work in AI. And their number one conclusion is that people feel more productive, but they also feel way more busy. And it's like, we can't be satisfied in, these tools have made us who knows how much percent more productive. Let's just say 10, 20% more productive. Maybe it's more than that. But instead of using that extra time that we're gaining from that to talk to our coworkers more or whatever,
or just work less.
Or just work less. Instead, we're looking at all these tools of like, well, how can I get 4 agents going at once? Right? Now that I can do so much more. How can I do even more?
Yeah.
And I can't look at any one interaction with an agent and be like, wow, that was really inefficient, because they're insanely efficient. Like if I say to an agent, like I just have to hint to Claude that I want something done, and it just like he just goes off and does it. Even when I've told him like 3 things earlier, like I just want to spec this out, like immediately, like he'll start cranking code and being like, yeah, man, that's what you want me to do. That's why I'm here. Let's go. And you're like, wow, look at me. I just typed, my physical effort was typing three sentences, and then all of this stuff comes out, right? Isn't that? But why am I more tired at the end of the day? All I did was type 3 sentences. But it's like, no. There's all this. You have to review it, and then it's like this whole thing. And I think we also skip past this whole idea of like incremental building upon success. I mean, a lot of like the kind of, I don't know, like to use a high flute, like the standard practices of like the old, kind of, practical programmer type deal, pragmatic programmer, of small PR. It just kind of goes out the window when you can just like ask it for a whole app in one shot and be like, okay, well, what kind of persistence layer did he use? I don't know. It just sort of popped out, like, no, man. Like you used to have to like build the persistence layer first, make sure that that's rock solid, and then go build the API layer and make sure that's rock solid and unit test it. But we don't do any of that stuff anymore.
No, I mean, now it's like the meme that we used to see of like the skateboard to the scooter to the bicycle to the crappy car to the really good car is now like a car tire, and then a second car tire, and then a body, and then like a massive engine, and then it's like it's done. But it's totally different from what we used to iterate towards that car.
Yeah.
So I do have
like
one
idea to car, and then car turns out to be like it has a triangular tire in the back and 3, rectangular tires up front. And you're like, what the heck is that, man? I don't even know.
So one thing I've done to help with my own sanity and to help, I guess, maybe potentially be more productive is I've definitely lowered my standards when it comes to PR review, specifically around code. So I still think what Paige mentioned, doing smoke tests is still important to do, but I'm looking at the actual implementation significantly less than I used to. So I'll still go to the diff tab, and we use GitHub. So I'll go into GitHub and I'll look at the diff. But my look at the diff is more of a high level skim nowadays than it is actually looking at. I tend to not have opinions anymore about what files or what functions were used. It's instead a higher level. Does the amount of code changed here feel in proportion to what is being described? So if someone says they're making a styling fix, and then I look at the diff and it's changed 20 CSS files, I might be like,
and our API has
"Whoa."
changed.
Yeah,
And you're like,
yeah.
what?
I might go, whoa, okay. But if they say they're doing a scrolling fix and I go in and I see a 10-line change to a JavaScript file, I probably just going to go like, you know what? I'm just going to go, instead of worrying about what actually changed in the code, I'm just going to go do my smoke test. And you know what? If it passes the smoke test, I'm just approving it and I'm getting on with my life. And both because that's both my own sanity sort of thing. But also, I think, I mean, I work for a startup, so my opinion is going to be a little bit different than if you're working on some mission critical, space launching software. But I do trust the agents more now. So
Yes.
I'm taking my review to the smoke test level. But for the actual code, it's like I'm high level. I'm just going to assume it knows what it's doing because I have other things I can be working on because I've got 6 other reviews to get to or whatever.
Well, I tend to look at the sidebar first, see what files it's touching. Almost like I'll look at the docs if it's making changes in there to kind of get like if it's changing the API, then the docs will give me a good clue as to like, well, did you update the docs to one to show the new API, and 2, at least you kind of see the before and after deltas of the API fixes in there, and then I sort of look and see like what TS files were hit. And I look for the most, the ones that are really meaningful, like the API handlers or the kind of common signatures. Yeah. And then I just forget, like unit tests is like, okay, I don't even bother.
I found AI to be pretty decent at the unit tests, and maybe it's just the unit tests that we're writing for our particular scenario, but I know that people, complain a lot about unit tests and AI writing terrible ones that don't actually test the feature or kind of just code the answer so that it will always pass. But I feel like when I do review unit tests that AI has written for me anyway, they are pretty decent. And sometimes it gets overambitious. Like it will test every single scenario, even ones that practically should never happen, or it'll suggest E2E tests and then decide, and then after churning for 10 or 15 minutes, realize that really an E2E test is too much work to set up, which it is in some cases. But I don't feel like I've found that as much of where it's just kind of fudging the tests as some people have.
I'll say that this is one thing where I think having engineering background and having human reviewers can be very, very important because I think to an experienced engineer, you can look at a diff and say, should this have unit tests? Should this have end-to-end tests? If it doesn't, then you can give that feedback because it's quick for an AI agent to do it. And also just when you're looking at, if you've seen a lot of these tests before, you can process them at a high level and see exactly what Paige said. Is this unit test doing something useful or is it doing something pointless? Because I've seen both. And that's the good thing is you can offer this quick feedback and fix it. Because I've seen AI write tests that are just testing just for the sake of testing. And I've seen a lot of humans write that sort of code over the years as well. But the great thing about in an agent world is before, if you used to give somebody back feedback that said, oh, this really needs some tests, you knew the person getting it would go, oh, this is going to suck. I didn't really want to test this. Whereas now it's like you're giving somebody back a task that's going to take 30 seconds to. So if you notice by looking at the code at a high level that, this is the sort of thing that we should have some sort of automated testing to catch potential regressions or whatever, AI can solve that in 30 seconds and you're actually adding value. That's one thing as humans we can still, I feel like, do quite effectively.
And that's a thing. Like the unit tests, the automated tests, they are not just for us, they are for the AI agents as well. They do so much better when they have tests that they can test their own stuff against and regress or catch bugs or errors or things like that. Yes, we should care about that as developers and feel better about our code that it's been tested, but that is also for our agents. It's not just for us.
The other thing I've seen over time, now that we've had a few months of this added AI era, way more code, is that one of my big concerns used to be managing these large test suites starts to become a nuisance in and of itself. And I'm finding that's just not true in an AI era, because if a test suddenly breaks, it's so fast to just throw an agent on figuring out what the problem was and fixing it. Those are the sort of tasks that are easily deferred or just are easily delegated, that's the word I was looking for, to AI to fix. So I don't have the concerns that I used to about having, I mean, for a while, and Paige, you know this, we have a big Cypress test suite, and that's been a bit of a mixed blessing because it finds some stuff, but it's also introduces some flakiness, and sometimes it can break your CI. But I'm no longer concerned about that, because the times it does break, you can just tell your AI, hey, this test has been a little bit flaky, and it'll be like, oh, you know what, it is. Let me look at this. Let me add some retries and polish it up. And I'm spending almost no brain power on that. And I sleep a little bit easier knowing that with all the AI slop I'm approving and sending into production, that I have more of this established unit test and end-to-end test suite that's going to help verify that as this stuff changes over time.
Mm-hmm. And then the big $1 million question, though, comes back around of, do you feel, even though we all feel more productive and feel like we're doing more, do you feel as satisfied at the end of the day as when you took a week to work on a PR?
No.
And yeah, exactly.
Absolutely not. There's no thrill of the hunt. There's no thrill of the chase anymore. Like all that is gone. And I think that was, I started feeling that kind of like last year, like, and it's just gotten worse since, which is like, now I'm just a product manager. Like the entire role has changed. Now, as I think it's like Pocock or Dodd says, we're all now product engineers. So, our whole thing is essentially being a sort of fusion of like PM and technologist and stuff. And it's like, I worry about this, to be honest with you. Like it's how I could be, we could all be a product manager because we lived through the era of doing it ourselves and understanding all those technology choices and understanding all those trade-offs. How do you become a product engineer from jump? Because there's just like the AI is doing so much and it's doing it in its own way. Like you're not bringing, if you don't have any of that experience, what are you bringing to the table? I don't know. Yeah. It's not satisfying at all.
Or even, do you want to? Like, that's the other thing that I'm finding my motivation is flagging, even though it's like we're building interesting stuff, we're helping people with our tools, and it's really cool what we're doing. It's like, is it exciting, or is it really satisfying to finish a new feature? And for a minute, it is like, oh, that new thing works and it's great, and the customer's happy, it fixes their issue. But at the same time, it's like, I am not nearly as fulfilled, I guess, which is such a first world thing to complain about.
Yeah.
But I'm not nearly as fulfilled that I have done something cool with my own sweat and blood and hard thinking and stuff like that.
I know exactly what you mean. Like, I can be sitting there watching TV, right? And I have I'll have a laptop right over there, but it's closed and I'm thinking to myself, I now have the power to make literally anything I want in the world. Like I could just think it right now and go over to that, flip open that lid, fire up Claude or whatever, and be like, hey, Claude, make blah, 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 blah. And I'd rather just sit there watching Game of Thrones because I'm like, okay, guess that's a thing.
But I mean, that should be.
I feel bad about it.
Yeah. The problem there is you shouldn't feel bad about it, but I sympathize with you because I know the exact same thing that you're going through. I will say, if for anybody that is not sure, I will say that I at least personally think there's still an incredible amount of value in the backgrounds that we have. You can't just throw anybody into the workflows and the situations we're working on and expect success. I've mentioned some of the things on the show, just the value of being able to understand this stuff at a high level is still incredibly valuable. In fact, it might even be more valuable than it used to be. I mean, you can't just take someone off the street or even somebody just out of a code camp and throw them in with Claude. You would see the mess that they are going to make in your code base almost immediately. So if anything, the value of a highly trained software engineer is improving and is even more so. Now, the harder part is the discussion we've been having is, as someone who is a established software developer, do you still like what you're doing? That is a much more challenging thing to answer. But I will say that you almost have to change what satisfaction means to you in a sense. Like, if you take a step back and just think about the cool stuff that you're building and able to build, and I hope, at least, I don't know, I've kind of full. I've had several rounds of potential existential crisis, and then like at times like taking a step back and thinking like, wow, what I can do right now is just incredible. And the 5 years ago me wouldn't have even believed that any of this is remotely possible, and trying to find satisfaction in that. And I don't have the answer for this. All I can tell you is that I go back and forth. There are periods at which I don't even know what I'm doing anymore or why I'm doing it. And also periods of time where I feel like God and I can just create and, move the universe around to my whims to do whatever I need to do. And somehow I'm oscillating between those two states all the time.
Yeah.
And
totally with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That God feeling is amazing.
It is. But when I have those existential spirals like I do, I also think to myself, when I'm getting back into the rational, pragmatic world of living, there is nothing else that I could go and do right now that I can think of anyway that would pay me as well as I'm getting paid still doing this.
And I think for senior developers, you should feel pretty good about your job security. I think this is just going to increase the demand for software. It's going to increase the demand for people who are engineers in the before times also, to Jack's point. I think people that are doing this are going to continue to be highly valuable people. I do have concerns for the junior people coming up in the world, but I will say that they're coming up with the most amazing learning tool ever created in our lifetime. So I think people who are entrepreneurial, who want to take the effort to learn this stuff, they've got the best tool ever to learn it. And so hopefully they will use that to.
But it's a validating tool. And that's also what I think is a little worrisome, is that, I mean, and normies out in the, who just used AI, we're talking about like AI psychosis and this sort of thing, or where it's just Eliza. Whatever you say, it's like, oh, that's such a great idea.
That's a great idea.
And it's like, I mean, I've looked at our, like PRs lately that have been like, yeah, that's a terrible idea, but it's well executed. It's a well executed, terrible idea. Like, and that's where you can get to with AI, is like, wow, that we should never have done that, but yet we could and did extremely quickly because of AI. And that's where you get to with the junior engineer thing. If you don't have that experience of having like literally shot yourself in the face viscerally with some bad ideas over time, which all of us have, like, I mean, most of my experience is failing and then picking myself back up by the bootstraps and being like, oh, okay, well, that was a dumb idea. And then you kind of catalog
Let's try a
that.
different one.
Where's your catalog of bad ideas? Because the AI is just going to tell you like, oh, yeah, let's make an API that allows us to execute TypeScript over the wire and just give it to people. That's a great idea.
At some point, though, here's the thing, though. At some point, if you follow along with the AI, you will figure out how the AI will burn you, and that will be your learning experience.
Yeah,
because at some point, if you tell it to do something, you're going to eventually run into the problems, and you are going to learn the hard way, and you're going to get out of that pit way faster than we used to when we had those bad ideas, because we would have to seek out somebody on Stack Overflow or maybe a senior developer to help take some time and sit down with you. And now you can have a chat with these LLMs, and yes, the LLMs will try to tell you you have all these great ideas, but you can see with your eyes whether what it's telling you works or not. And at some point, if you're going to build something that doesn't work, or you're going to build something with security flaws or whatever, that is going to burn you, and that will be your learning experience.
So can I take us on a slightly different tangent here? And it kind of comes back to that whole king of the world, God mode thing, right? There does seem to be like on X, like maybe it's that social media thing, but people saying like, oh, I built blah, 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 and I use 18 agents a day, 18 agents simultaneously and blah, 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 blah. And they're not talking about an emotional or a mental crisis around this stuff. And I have to wonder, like, are they just alien? Like I talk to other people like more kind of like friendly like this, and everybody that I talk to just kind of one-on-one is like, oh yeah, man, I'm having like a mental health crisis and blah 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 blah. But there are definitely influencers out there who are like, yeah, man, I got this all under control, and I have totally changed. And I used loops before they were cool, and if you're not using loops, they're blah 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 blah. And you're like, oh wow. I mean, what's wrong with me?
I think you just nailed it, though, Jack. They're influencers. They make their living off of people clicking on their stuff and buying their courses and hiring them for speaking events and doing YouTube videos. They don't make their living off of writing software the way we do. I think that's the biggest difference, is that they need to be constantly creating content and saying inflammatory things so that people will respond to them and engage and click their videos and get into a flame war with them on Twitter. And the rest of us who are just trying to live our lives and pay our bills and make ends meet and write decent software that other people can use and benefit from are the ones who are quietly burning out and feeling like we can't manage 2 agents at the same time because the context switch is too much, and we have a billion PRs from our coworkers that we also have to review at the same time.
I think 2 things can be true. I think some of it is, yes, these people, it's in their best interest to put on a persona, and that's how they drive clicks and that's how they drive views. But I think there's a bit of it that is actual genuine just inspiration, being excited. Because imagine if you're a person that doesn't have a deep software background and you have a strong entrepreneurial spirit. What an amazing time to be that sort of person, to have a tool where that you can use to create stuff that previously would be unimaginable. I mean, it's a trope in the Silicon Valley world of these founders that need to find a tech lead because they're searching for that person because they've got the idea, they've got the spirit, but they don't have, they need somebody. I need this person to build my app, or I need this person to whatever. And that sort of persona now can genuinely build a large chunk of their idea themselves. So I think there's some genuine
POC to show something off, right? But I think the last half mile problem is still not solved.
I do, but I think like to those people, I mean, this is a revolutionary time to be alive. And I think so some of what you see online is just the enthusiasm from people in those sorts of positions that can now sort of try to springboard to build. And will some of them run into walls? Will a lot of them run into walls and fail? Sure. But you're seeing a lot of just the enthusiasm, the spirit around being able to do this sort of thing. And it drives this hype that can get nauseating, overwhelming for those of us that have jobs that are more in the trenches, software development jobs.
I feel like a lot of it is a little weird to me that Lovable is talking about how it's deploying like 8 million applications a second or some such crazy stuff, and it's obviously not that, but like, you know what I mean, like some crazy number. And I'm like, I've never talked to a barista that's deployed an app. Like I've never seen a Lovable app. Not that I'm aware of. Like I don't like
who's making all this stuff?
Who's this? Where is this? Is this just like, oh, we're using Lovable to go and clone the Wells Fargo homepage for phishing? Is that what they're doing? I don't know. Like it just seems really unreal in a lot of ways. A lot of this stuff.
Maybe it's bots.
Yeah, maybe.
If bots are the majority of the traffic on the internet, maybe the bots are making these things.
Bots are making apps or bots.
Yeah.
Or scamming apps for people.
I mean, there's a lot of young, curious people out there. I mean, I think of when I was younger, and my equivalent was I was building GeoCities and Angel Fire sites. And if I were that young person today, I would be on these vibe coding platforms, building dumb ideas that popped into my head, and I wanted to see real. And so instead of really bad websites with a bunch of bad GIFs and auto playing music, I'd be building stupid stuff on these platforms, and I'd be building a lot cooler and more robust stuff that I was building back in the day because these tools are just way more powerful. So it probably would scratch more of an itch. And just
And
like
to
the
your
stuff
point,
I was
I mean, that's
building.
the way that you learn those lessons that we talked about, right? How do you go from a junior developer to a senior developer? Is you just make a whole lot more mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you do that GeoCities thing or whatever, you know what I mean? Like hey, I want to do something to, track my guild, my whatever Warhammer guild or whatever it is. Like,
So
you learn. Like,
I can
okay,
tell
this created a security vulnerability, and now all my guild secrets are out there. I guess that's important or whatever.
the thing that I remember broke my brain, and this was something when I was in high school, so I would have been like 16 or 17. I was a sports fanatic. I was obsessed with the NCAA basketball tournament, March Madness, bracket of 64. So I built a website on Angel Fire where people could submit their picks for the bracket. I built like my own sort of equivalent for this. But what I didn't know, I sort of just displayed the results from brackets that people had submitted manually. But I couldn't figure out how ESPN had built a robust system where people could actually fill their things online and they could store those results and then present them. And that was just complete and utter black magic to me. I didn't understand it. So my site was just sort of statically displaying information, but that kind of created that hook for me, that mystique of how do I actually get to the point where I can solve these problems. And I feel like as a kid today in these platforms, I might have been able to take the next steps of saying like, well, maybe I can get a web app out here. Maybe you can figure out how to connect this to a database, or at least I'd have something to talk to. And I try to be an optimistic person, and that's how I choose to at least maybe this is my coping mechanism, but that this is a cool tool that the kids out there, the building sort of stuff like that, have a thing to talk to learn, to get further, to ultimately help us build better software. That's how I sleep at night, at least.
All right. Well, do we want to do what's making us happy this week?
I think so. I think we need a pick me up.
Yeah. Exactly. Actually, weirdly, I am picked up by this. One, because I feel like other people are going through this as well, and I don't see enough of that in the real world.
Yeah.
I don't see enough influencers out there saying, whoa, I feel like I'm God. I oscillate between God and not wanting to go over here and eat this bag of crisps, and severe depression. These seem to be the two flagpoles of my existence, kind of thing. And it helps. It helps people, real people who don't want to say this understand that there are people out there who have a lot of experience. I mean, I don't know how many years we've got of experience between the three of us, but it's a lot. And they're struggling with all this because, and the pace. My God, the pace of this is so crazy. In the time that we have had this podcast, we have gone from having a little bit of type completion that I was into, and you guys were like, I don't know.
It's not very good.
Completion, it gets more than my weight. Now do we really even need an editor at this point? Let's get real. All the time doing leak code, all those time learning keystrokes. Not that I did any of that, but all those times learning all those little things about how to find where the definition is, how to refactor in apps, everything that we've come to love about IDEs.
Your favorite plugins,
Who cares?
like what you can't live without, format on autocomplete and save, all that stuff.
Totally. You can use Notepad. You can use Notepad nowadays, and maybe color coding on keywords is handy. Maybe if you end up reading code ever, what? It's crazy. So I'm sorry I got back into it again, but I think it's good. I think more conversations like this need to happen.
Yeah, and we want to have more of them on this podcast. So stay tuned. We plan to. As you can see, we can clearly do this for hours.
Soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about what's making us happy.
Yes.
All right. Since we didn't actually have a news segment, we usually do like this kind of inversion thing, but I'm just going to pick. So, Paige, what's making you happy this week?
All right, I'm going to detour completely away from technical, even from TV shows and things like that, which I typically like to pick. I am going to pick a kitchen gadget. We're going back to the great kitchen gadgets that everyone can benefit from. This one is the Chef's Choice electric knife sharpener. And I think, everybody can use this. Everybody has
needs a knife
knives.
sharpener, y'all. Keep those knives sharp.
Exactly. And this thing is great. We've had it actually for several years, but just recently it got pulled out again to resharpen the chef's knife, which is the one that we use for practically everything when we're cooking every day. And it just does a great job. It's got, I think, either 2 or 3 different gates that you pull the knife through to grind it down and then to get the really sharp edge at the end. But it works like a charm every time, and it'll save us from having to buy a new chef's knife for probably the rest of our lives. But it's great. It's easy to use. It's got like a really good instruction book of like how to test and make sure that the knife is in the proper, it's in the proper state for the next part of the sharpener, because there's, like I said, 3 different gates for it. But it's
really?
just great.
It does. Wow. Okay.
So
it just has little instructions of you should feel this when you rub your finger against it, the burr or whatever they call, and then you're ready to go to step 2 or step 3 or whatever. So
so that's what I was going to ask, because if you can click the link in the show notes, but looking at this thing, it's rectangular and then it's got like 3 different slots for it. Yes. So I imagine they're kind of like gates. You go 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Coarse,
and is it easy to know?
Whatever. Yeah.
Is it easy to know what you're doing? Because that's like we have one sort of thing that's more manual, and I mean we're watching YouTube videos trying to figure this out, and my wife did figure out how to sharpen some of our stuff, and she's done some good work with it. But when I do it, I don't really know what I'm doing, to be honest with you. So
sharpening YouTube, man, is a rabbit hole that you can get lost down. Like you get those guys who are like doing the stone thing, and they're like, those off the shelf grinders, man, for amateurs, never get a good cut. Like what?
Yeah, I've tried to stay away from knife sharpening YouTube because I know it's going to be a rabbit hole. But this little instruction manual that comes with it is pretty darn good for just like run your finger along this blade, towards the sharp point. And if you can kind of feel a little catch, that means that you're ready to go to step 2. And if you can't, do it 4 more times and then test it again. So, for us, I think it's good enough, because then our knife is sharp again and it cuts things much better than it was. So, for my inexpert, for my
also,
inexpert
opinion,
like
that emergency room number there, run your finger along this blade, but if you need to, here's the emergency room number.
Always run towards the sharp point, not away from,
Flick along the side for those playing the home game. That helps too.
Yeah, but the nice thing about this particular one, in addition to the little, the fact that it has 3 different versions and it has the instructions, is that it is actually a chunky little thing, so it will not move while you're sharpening. So you just put it on your kitchen counter or wherever, and you can really bear down pretty good and make sure that the knife is like fully in there getting sharpened, and it won't budge while you're doing it.
The other thing to read into this is what Paige said, which is the only knife we use is a chef's knife.
Pretty much.
Believe me, I'm kind of old. There's like 3 knives you need. Like that's it. Like the whole like chopping block full of like 18 different pairing, fillet, blah 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 blah.
Hardly
like the
ever
long
use
knives
those.
and stuff. Never. Like maybe an electric knife for doing like the Thanksgiving turkey. But then everything else is like, just a chef's knife. Chef's knife will work. Good,
you need
sharp chef's knife.
You need one serrated one for cutting certain things, but the thing
Yep.
is, those stay sharp, so you don't really
Yeah.
need to sharpen those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use those for bread all the time, and that's pretty much all I use them for. But they're
Yeah. So instead of
but they're
buying like a
great at it.
$400 chopping block, buy a $400 chef's knife. You know, well,
And then something to sharpen it with.
right.
Yeah.
Actually,
keep
I'd
it
say buy
forever.
like a maybe $100 chef's knife. Beat the crap out of it, and then know what you're doing. So you're not like
With the next.
chopping chocolate with necessarily like whatever taking the edge off this thing on marble. Yeah. Okay. Enough about knives. Let's talk about TJ. TJ, what's it got? Unless it's knives.
So it is not knives, but it's also not tech. I'm kind of liking the theme of this. So I'd mentioned we had went on a road trip throughout the East Coast and up to Maine and whatnot. So last week I talked about Rail Explorers, where we went out on a train track. And the other cool thing on the trip I wanted to talk about was Acadia National Park. So we drove up to Maine. It's a little remote. It takes a little while to get there. It's like a little over 5 hours from Boston. So it was a decent sized road trip. But man, it is an awesome park. So it's right on the east coast of Maine. It's right on the Atlantic Ocean. It's like this little sort of peninsula that juts out of Maine on the east coast there. And it is absolutely gorgeous. It is amazing for, you could just drive around. So there's the highest peak on the Atlantic coast, which sounds impressive until you realize there's not much competition for that claim. So it's only like it's like 1,000 some foot mountain, which I'll put in air quotes. But we hiked up to the top of that thing, so I can say it is a pretty big sized hill.
You have to go from ain't nothing.
Yeah,
that ain't nothing, and you get some amazing views up there. So it's great. There's beaches. There's a little bit something for everybody. So if you want to just drive around, it's like a 30-minute scenic drive around the place. Or if you want to do hikes, there's a handful of really fun hikes. There's a really awesome beach. And then there's just a cute little town there next to it where there's a lot of touristy stuff you can do. You can go whale watching. You can go see puffins, which are some like really unique
yeah. We have puffins.
oh, I love that.
Yeah.
creatures from there. You can take little cruises out to see them, which is cool also. I'd say the only downside of all of this is that a lot of other people know that this is a cool place to go. So if you go in certain weekends in July and August, prepare for crowds because there will be a lot of people. So if you can go slightly off season or during the week or something like that, because we noticed that because we first went there during the week where it was kind of, pleasant and such. And then the weekend came and it was like, wow, it was turned into a bit of a zoo. But I mean, we still had a lot of fun. So if you're looking for vacation ideas, especially if you like hikes, medium difficulty hikes, it's a good place to check out.
Did you spend a couple of days up there, like do some camping or rent a cabin?
We did not. I'm not a huge fan of camping, which is ironic because we're going camping here this weekend. But we stayed in the little like touristy town, which was kind of expensive. But I personally like just having a hotel to go to. But there is definitely camping in the area if that's the sort of thing you like. And we did stay a few days.
I feel like I'm too old to sleep on the ground. My back would not be happy the next day.
Yeah, we have some nicer stuff, but then if you have to haul all that stuff and it's a whole thing.
Cool. So what's making me happy this week are Cooper's Hawks. You guys know what a Cooper's Hawk is?
I don't know what that is. I'm Googling
big bird. It's a big hawk. And so my wife and I, we have 2 feeders running in the backyard, and our backyard is onto a big green space with, out of fence. It's got a kind of graded fence kind of thing. It's not really, so it's, and that green space, let me help you envision it, is like very woods. It's just woods. And so turns out if you feed like songbirds and juncos and that sort of stuff, well, there are predator birds that come along, and these predator birds are Cooper's hawks. And these birds are big, and they have big talons, and they go and they eat said songbirds and juncos. And now we've got like at least 4 of them, because there were 4 hanging out on my next door neighbor's like shed top, just chilling. 2 were like, and they're, 2 were just chilling, kind of sleeping in the sun, and the other 2 are keeping watch. And it's like, but It's been amazing to see these birds, and I'm thankful that I have a really good like sport lens and a good camera, and I've been able to take some crazy shots of these guys. Because to be honest, like they don't really care. Like if I go out on the deck and they're there, they're kind of like, "Hey, dude, what's up?" Like, okay, because I mean they're like maybe a pound and a half a bird, which
Yeah.
birds have hollow bones, so that's a lot of birds. So it's been very interesting. And we watched a couple videos last night on Cooper's hawks and what they eat and what they don't eat. And they don't eat, 30-pound dogs, which is handy. They don't eat humans. But I got to tell you, though, like I'll post some pictures in the Discord channel. Like if their talons hit you, you're not going to be having a fun day. Like, I mean, I'm looking at these things and it's like, ooh, that's not fun. But I mean, hey, we don't mess with them. They don't mess with us. I just take pictures of them and they don't seem to mind.
Have you noticed at all if the local bird population is declining? Are there less
They're not
songbirds?
talking as much as they used to. That's for sure. And my wife has now gotten really adamant about feeding the birds up front because I know a couple episodes ago I talked about how they put a nest, these songbirds, I put a nest in the wires that I ran for my security cameras. And my wife has gotten very interested in like their health and safety and security. So like she makes sure that they've got enough seed up front so that they don't go near the Cooper's hawks that are in the back. And the Cooper's hawks talk a lot. So I think if you're if you're a bird, like that these things exist in the area.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous birds. And I'll put some pictures in the Discord server. Which encourages you, go over, check out our Discord server, talk to us about, how are you feeling about AI? Is it made your life better? Are you one of these folks who are like, yep, I'm on it. Ain't no problems. I got this. Like I've never been more efficient or whatever. Or you're like, wow, this is kind of an existential crisis versus feeling super powered every day, crazy. And I can't even talk to my normie friends about it because they have no idea what's going on. Just let us know in the DM.
Yeah, where are you on the spectrum? Or
Yeah.
are you just going all over
Or
the
you like
place?
us. You're just
Or
kind
you-
of,
yeah.
yep.
Right, and I think there might be this case. Like, are you a dark dev in some company that will not allow these tools, and you're just sort of wondering, like, what is
What's
going
the
on out
difference?
there? Like, what is
Yeah.
happening right now?
Yeah, there are those companies.
Yeah. Although
Yeah.
if you are that person, I would strongly and somehow listen to this podcast, which I'm not sure why you would. Go try them out on your own at least to figure out what we're on about. Maybe we're all nuts. I don't know. Could be.
Well, I mean, we probably are
Probably
all nuts
are.
to
Yeah.
a degree, but yeah.
Yeah. That's an entirely
Let us know.
different story. Exactly.
We want to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. All right. In the meantime, good luck out there. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. See you, everybody.